Hi, I'm Taylor Mayde, and from 2006 to 2014, I was part of Columbus, Ohio's premier drag king troupe, the Royal Renegades. For 8 years, I performed as male, female, and non-binary characters, stage managed, and co-produced over 30 drag shows. Through drag, I performed at bars and venues all over the country, and also made some incredible friends along the way. Together, we're Revisiting the Spotlight, a podcast recorded at Boxland Media where I connect with performers from my past to learn about their journey through the world of drag. Today we're talking with Catt Dazzle.
Hello.
Hello, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So, Catt Dazzle, how did the name come to be and what year did you start?
Oh, as Catt Dazzle? Or in general?
Take it all the way back.
Okay. So originally my name was not Catt Dazzle. My original drag name, except I did female performances, so I really didn't do drag. I just performed as femme, was Kit Vixen. And I started with a troupe that I started called Girlesque. And that was in roughly 2005, 2006. Mm-hmm. When that troupe dissolved, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I changed my stage name to Catt Dazzle. Both don't really have a persona, because what I saw was I had been going to drag shows since His Kings came down to Louisville, Kentucky, where I was living at the time in the late 90s. And they came down to do a New Year's Eve show. And DJ, oh my God, what's Donna's drag name? Donna Troca, I don't remember their drag name right
I can't remember.
DJ something. I can't remember. Anyway, and I have been friends prior to this or whatever, so hence them contacting me to say, hey, come to our show. So I went to the show, had a great time. It was amazing. Started friendships with people here in Columbus and started traveling from Louisville to Columbus. And so then eventually I moved up to Columbus and kept going to drag shows. And I just noticed that, yes, it's super awesome and super expressive to see all the drag kings, but sometimes we wanted to see femme positions on stage as well.
Right.
But I didn't want to chisel into and take away from the importance of drag kings. So, hence forming our own troupe. So Girlesque was formed to put together kind of a cabaret show at what was then, did it even have a name then? The back part of Slammers?
Club 202.
Oh, yeah, it did. Club 202. Star painted the door. That's right.
Yeah.
So Club 202, Marsha was trying to get it off the ground and wanted ideas for entertainment, that kind of stuff. So we just started putting ideas together and came up with kind of a cabaret show done back there. And this was during the time that, like, Pussycat dolls were popular. So, like, the whole cabaret thing was kind of in. You know, Chicago, I think, had just done the remake. So it was kind of the thing that was going around. It was a one-night show. We put a ton of work into it. It was packed. It was exciting. It was a ton of fun. We did one other show. We didn't do any other shows at 202, but then we did one at Wall Street eventually. Yeah. And then after that, the troupe just dissolved because of drama.
Because that's what happens.
That's what happens, because drama. So in that time frame, though, of doing Girlesque, I had approached Gavin Danger and just kind of out in just a brief conversation of like, hey, we should collaborate and you should think this idea over. And still to this day, I will give them a hard time because they were like so dismissive of it. Like just this very like, oh, okay, great, and walked away. So the running joke is that I have now is some time later, somebody came groveling back on their hands and knees, begging me to perform.
I need a biofem.
Yes. So, I think our first number together was with Mason Dixon, Gavin Danger, and then I don't even know if the other femme performer had a stage name. But we did a Wall Street show and we performed together. And then from there, I just got asked to either coordinate numbers or be in group numbers or be I mean, a lot of people still probably to this day think that Gavin and I have probably one of the longest romance relationships known, but we've actually never been romantically involved. It's that our stage presence was that celibate.
Yes.
So, so Catt Dazzle, I think Kit Vixen was a little more of a stage performer, and Catt allowed me to do the stage management as well.
Yeah.
And that just was kind of more of a, I don't know, like, it seemed more like a solid name. I don't know. Not as playful. It seemed a little bit more like, it wasn't as dismissed as like, some drag names can either be too risque or things like that. I just kind of felt like she was a character that was part of Girlesque, and Girlesque wasn't anymore. So I just wanted to kind of leave that there and move forward with Catt Dazzle.
I was at both the Girlesque shows. One of my friends was in the troupe, and for the Wall Street show, I bought a table, and I remember you guys were raffling off like Girlesque items, and one was a framed picture of all of you, and Downtown Connection bought it.
Yep.
I was like standing next to them. They had to call their boss on the phone and be like, how much can I bid on this poster of Girlesque? And then it hung up in Downtown Connection, I think, until the day they closed.
Yeah, I wonder where that picture is these
Oh,
days.
God. It's like in some thrift stores.
So, right. Oh, Lord.
Oh, no.
So, my partner at the time was working in a photography studio, so that was very helpful to our promotions and stuff like that. So, I mean, I remember when we did all that photo shoot and everything. That's funny. I didn't know you were at the first one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What did you think of the show?
I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
good.
It was a very crazy night.
Yeah.
It was a lot of energy put into it. Then there was just, again, a lot of drama that went with it, and it was just like not there anymore.
Yeah. So with being in the Renegades, you performed and you also did stage managing. How did that come to be?
Oh my God, I don't even know how my first stage management thing happened. I think it was just, I don't know, I'm born to organize and manage things, which is, I say this all the time at work. I'm like, that's my special talent. Like, some people have these amazing, can like sing and dance and like, I don't know, come up with like astronautical things and whatnot, and I can manage and organize stuff. So I don't actually remember the very first show that I stage managed, but somebody from the Renegades had approached me and just said, hey, can you do this? And I just did. And then from there, that's one thing that I must have been good at, because a lot of people asked me to do it, and I got a lot of accolades for it. And I really enjoyed doing it. I think it was a lot of fun to have that whole energy of getting everybody ready and getting everybody like together to put the whole vision to execution, you know, and have the audience have such a great time. And then I just counted down minutes till that last song, because that's when I would actually like have something to drink. Because prior to that, I needed to focus, you know.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Stage management is a job. That you do not need to be drinking while you're doing
it's
it.
one thing to coordinate all the performers and making sure that they are where they need to be before their number. But then it was another thing, like if items come off or are props and they go out into the audience, like I needed to know, you know, was that your $1,500 bustier that you just tossed out there that we need to like reel it back in, or were you willing to just like get rid of it? Because there were times that people would just take stuff when it went out in the audience. Rarely, but like there were times that it happened. So
yeah, it did happen.
yeah, I stage managed for a long time. I really liked it. I would totally do that again.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would perform again.
Yeah.
I'd probably like choreograph some stuff. I don't know that I'd perform again. I just feel like that has phased out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you actually trained me to be a stage manager, which that training carried over to when I moved into theater, and now it's carried over now that I do film. But before you taught me how to stage manage, I started the Renegades in 2006. So you were already part of it.
Yep. Not long before, though.
Okay.
I don't think.
Okay.
Maybe like a year.
I don't remember exactly meeting you. I know I met you before this time that I remember. I think it was when we were going to rehearse Coin Operated Boy, when we were going to go to Great Big. And we were like at a church or something. Yeah.
Wasn't it? Was it Kaleidoscope? Was it a
Oh,
room at Kaleidoscope?
when it was all the way down on High Street?
Maybe?
Okay, yeah, because
I
we were
think-
like in a church or
Yeah.
something. Somehow we had access
we
to
had
a church to
Yeah,
rehearse it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Funny because ironic.
So I remember like you weren't in the building yet. We were waiting whoever had the key to let us in. Hadn't been there yet, and you were on the steps and you were talking on the phone, and I came walking up, and you just gave me this look like, she's not one of my people, and continued talking, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm not one of her people. And so I just sat down, and like we didn't talk at all. And then throughout the course of like rehearsing and going to Great Big, we started talking and became friends, so much to the point to where I was your emergency contact at one point. I was like,
Many years.
my, how far we've come.
That's so funny. You know, I'm perfectly comfortable being in a public situation completely on my own. I'm secure in that. And so even times when I would go out, people would be like, you look so intimidating. So I'm not surprised for you to have that first meeting step. I was probably on the phone talking shop, talking business, and was like focused on what it was at hand. And I can definitely come off that way. So I apologize for that. Now I understand why when we went to the Great Big, that you were like, when we went to dinner that one night, we all shared like what we were thankful for or whatever. It was like one of those kinds of moments. And you were like, I'm just glad everybody is talking to me because I thought this was going to be like me and a whole bunch of strangers and we were going to be performing. And we were like, are you crazy? We just rehearsed for like 3 months together. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
That was so funny. We still laugh about that. I still think that we had the best road trip
We
car
did.
on the way back, there and
did.
back.
We did.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
with
there
Davey
was-
May and JJ Cox.
Yeah, no drama in our car.
And
at
that
all.
was
It
really,
great.
you know, because JJ hadn't started the troupe much prior to that because I went to his audition.
Okay.
I think they did it at Scully's. I think there was a couple people who auditioned, and I was at that. And then that's kind of when JJ had already had a history of knowing people here in Columbus. So there was like, we'd sort of already brushed shoulders, but this is really where our friendship probably like
Yeah.
started. So really the two of us were probably the only two that pseudo knew each other the most. And then it was like, we just had a blast.
Yeah.
That car trip was epic. It was
Yeah.
so much fun. Great big. You know, that's the thing that I love about drag is like all the people that we met from all over the world and how I still am kind of amazed at how we put together IDKE 10. And I coordinated like, I don't even remember how many acts from how many different countries, but it was, and we were at whatever the facility is called now, Kemba Live, which was the LC at one point, which was whatever.
The
before that,
Pavilion.
The Pavilion. Like it's been 5 different names or whatever, but we were there and I remember going in to do backstage and look at their changing rooms and everything. And I was like, okay, I have 3 rooms to cycle through the entire night and get everybody through. But man, it was awesome just to meet people from like Greece and Italy. And,
Yeah.
you know,
think
I mean,
someone was from Egypt.
Egypt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like people all over for drag.
Yeah.
And like, there's something to be said about those shows versus just like your standard shows that we would put on here in town. When you have performers that come in that have put months, close to a year probably into the production. And some
Right.
of these people have studied theater, some of them have studied dance or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got a whole lot of creatives that get on there and the group numbers are just like no other.
Right.
And it just brings a whole different energy. And that is something so exciting to be part of because it's kind of like the moment when, did you ever do the Hot Chicks float for Pride?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was always the last float because
The hot chicks. Yeah.
because getting us coordinated to get on a float together was a little chaotic
Yeah.
after some drinking in the morning, after the night before of the show. But we would, when you're on the Hot Chicks float and you're at the end of Pride and you look back and they're carrying the flag and the sea of people,
Yeah.
for that moment, your world as a queer person feels safe.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it feels accepted and it feels proud, which is a whole point of Pride, of like thinking about those who came before us and paved the way and some of the abuse and negativity and uphill battles that friends, family, ourselves have all had to get to that point. It's kind of the same feeling as it was when we were at a huge venue,
Right.
such as the 930 Club in DC, watching Ken Vegas be suspended down from, the beginning of Kill Bill. And then, the Chicago performers were always phenomenal. There was a troupe out from Santa Fe that was always great. I mean, it was just like the creme de la creme, which was always super exciting to be part of.
You're not going to mention the Vancouver?
Oh, my God. I mean, that just goes to show it. There are performances that definitely stick out.
Right.
They were top-notch performers.
They were.
Because
Yeah,
they
were
had
great.
some talented dance-inspired folks, whether they taught dance, did dance, or understood it, whatever.
They did something.
Yeah, they were really great. So,
Well, speaking of dance, you choreographed some numbers while you're with the Renegades. Did you have dance when you were a kid? Okay.
Yeah. Diane's Dance World plug from my hometown. I danced and did gymnastics from, I don't know, somewhere single-digit age.
Okay.
And then through high school, I was on our pom-pom squad / dance team. It's kind of the same thing.
So you tap, jazz?
I did when I was little, but mostly when I got older, I stuck to jazz and then a lot of acrobats. And then obviously I was on pom-poms 7th and 8th grade and then high school. So, we had to choreograph. I mean, I've been choreographing routines for 6 years prior to that. So I think that's also what I liked about drag is that kept that creativity in me of how do I want this to play out? How does this need to look? And it was, my mom used to say to me, I don't know how you can choreograph those things and remember everything that goes in order. And it struck me odd because it's just something that I've known since I was little. Like it's just, I'm sure any kid who's in like some sort of sport or some sort of athlete or whatever, it just becomes part of who you are. You don't really know what it does. But I will say that training, I definitely, like before I execute something, I like to envision the whole thing, and then I try to back it up step by step of exactly what all it takes. And I think that's where stage managing, probably where I became really good at it, was just the fact of like, this person's telling me they want lighting at this time. This is this chair needs to sit here. These things need to come off. These are the amount of items that need to come off of stage for them, all that kind of stuff. So I really just tried to like make sure that everything was flawless, because at the end of the day, at that moment, it was up to me to make the show smooth. So, and I never wanted to let Gavin down.
Yeah.
Do you remember that show when Gavin was like, they were like, Laura, Gavin's looking for you, Gavin's looking for you. And it was like one song before the cue song. Like it was that close to showtime.
Okay.
And I went back and I was like, yeah, pal, what's up? And they were like, I can't find the microphones. And I was like, okay. No problem. We'll find this. I came out and I found you, and I was like, "We're missing microphones." Like,
did we find them?
Gavin handed them off. Gavin, you found them.
Oh,
Gavin
good.
handed them off to someone, and that someone like went outside or something. But like we just split, and we're like, and we made it back in time.
Oh,
but,
good.
Yeah, there were definitely.
Remember that.
Yeah,
Good.
I was like, I remember just because if I showed panic to Gavin in that last moment before getting on stage would have panicked, and I didn't want to do that. So I was like, no problem, we'll find them. And as I'm walking away, I'm like. Or we'll just scream really loud. I don't know what we're going to do because we've lost both microphones. But I think that must have been you and I were already working together as stage managing, because that was definitely so much easier than doing it with one person.
By yourself.
Yeah.
I don't even remember like how I got involved with stage managing. I just remember one day I was stage managing. So
yeah,
I
that's
don't
kind
know
of
if
how
I was approached. I have no idea.
I don't remember, because I know that like, because my time with the Renegades was short, because then I did more stuff with Dangerous Productions. But I remember the Rev and I doing the Dirty Dancing number together.
I was just about to bring that up with your acrobats, because I remember you were like, I'm just going to take muscle relaxers, and then your back just like
flips back. Yeah. Yeah. Ask my 50-year-old body how that feels today. No, I just, I've always, and I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I like to be center of attention. It's a Virgo trait. Maybe it's also the first of a month. I don't know. Maybe it's being the baby in my family, but I was used to, doing the whole, like, outfit changes, makeup changes, all that kind of stuff when I would perform in recitals when I was younger, because I did dance all the way through high school. So I took dance in high school, but then I still danced with the dance studio until probably my senior year.
Yeah.
It's been a while, so I don't remember exactly when my last time was, but I'm sure that was my senior year recital.
Okay.
When I was done with that, so.
I remember for Dangerous Productions, Gavin was doing a show with like a back to school theme.
Oh, yeah.
And we were all in this photo shoot. Me, you, Gavin, and I think there was
Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah, Bryce Chambers.
Yeah. So the four of us, and we were like in our schoolgirl get up. You and I were in schoolgirl get up. And I remember the photographer, like, I was down on all fours, and you had your hand on my back, and the photographer said something like sexual or something, and I, for whatever, just got like
Bright
red, and you were like, I can feel her body.
Like how embarrassed you got. Who did that photo shoot? I don't remember who did that.
I can't remember.
I remember the photo shoot. I actually just came across those pictures the other day. Funny enough.
Yeah.
Man, that seems like forever ago.
It was forever
Hot for
ago.
Teacher. That's what that show was. That was a good show.
Yeah.
My favorite show though was the circus show.
Yeah, that was great.
I mean, like, I don't know.
was
Gavin
great.
and I just talked about that when I saw them last. I was like, I don't think we could have topped it after that one. It was such a good show. Like, just, we had a lot of different performers that didn't typically perform with us, so that was super exciting.
Yeah.
The theme of it was just cool and playful, and it went to so many different levels, and every single number that was put on stage was phenomenal that
Yeah.
night.
Was that the year that we did Disturbia? Okay.
That was just
That is my second favorite number.
What's your
I've ever
favorite?
done. My auto titsling one.
Oh, that was so
only
good.
because it was
Yeah.
auto titsling. But
yeah. That one was really good.
Thank you.
That was one of the questions that you had for this, was what was my favorite performance, and I would have to think, and man, it's hard to narrow down because was it a group performance? Was it my own solo performance? Was it the fact that I actually at one point did do a drag number? I think I did drag did I do it once or twice? I think just once. And I did George Michael's Freedom.
Yeah, that was for my guilty pleasure show.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was more of, that number I chose because I wanted it to be about not having to be confined to your gender at birth. You could represent yourself however you see fit, So it was definitely kind of this, let me live my life how I want to. Go busy yourself with better things in this world,
Yeah. So that number kind of had a political undertone to it, especially with you first time being in male drag. Did any of your other numbers, whether through Girlesque or when you were playing Biofemme, did they have political meaning?
Yeah, because we did the Another Brick in the Wall number.
I remember that, yeah.
That was sort of political. Sometimes they were political. Sometimes they were like spoofs on things. I remember, I think it was Garrett's at the time, where Rumors is now. I think it was Garrett's at the time, and I did a number there, and it was when Verizon had the Razor flip phone, so it was a gold frap, and it was just, and I did, so they used one of the gold frap songs for their commercial, and I sort of utilized that as somebody who was addicted to their cell phone. So like I was starting to perform, but I couldn't finish my performance because I had to be on my phone. Like I just had to, because that's, once cell phones pretty much became more than just phoning somebody.
Yeah.
Once we implemented texting and everything, even still today, you look at a room or people sitting out to dinner and they're all on their phones. Like we just became so addicted to our phones. So it was just kind of this take on, making you sort of see yourself sometimes and like, am I being a little ridiculous? I can put, because we come from a generation where you could leave your phone at home and you lived.
It was fine. Yeah, everyone was okay.
Every single time you lived. So yeah, that would be, I really did enjoy the number that we put together for the next great big, which was Roxanne, which was from Moulin Rouge.
Right. You and Gavin did it, and then you guys performed it again in Wall Street, and I was up on the balcony. Sam and I were up on the balcony, I don't know, Dad was being sexually harassed by Sam. I don't know. That was like my role.
That was my role. Yes,
I was being
yes.
sexually harassed.
That number was really, I just thought we pulled it together really well. And so I was excited to execute that one. Unfortunately, when we took it to DC to perform it, our music, there was some sort of like glitch with the CD. It skipped.
Oh.
And it actually kind of skipped flawlessly. Like it didn't, like auditorily, it didn't really mess up the audience.
Okay.
But for the people performing it, where we needed counts and like cued in the song. So what was funny was the music had the blip, and it was like every performer on stage just looked at me like, what do we do? And I was like, I remember taking this moment to like listen to where we were, and then I remember taking my head and just like doing this little move, and everybody else, we just got in step, but it cut a majority of our routine out, and we were super bummed. We didn't get to re-perform it, but I think that's maybe, I don't know if we did that. Did we do it at Wall Street before that, or did we take it there first and then perform it at Wall Street? I don't remember, but funny thing about that performance, that was like, I think where Catt Dazzle and Gavin Danger clicked and stayed clicked was, remember the old Wall Street stage?
Oh, yeah, the arrow.
Yeah, the arrow.
Yeah.
Lots of room for error. So here I am in the dark. You know, when you perform, all the lights are on you, so it's super hard to see out and around you.
Yeah.
And I'm in heels, and I'm doing this spin where I'm spinning and snapping up to Gavin, and then I'm dipped back and spin and up and spin, and like there's all these spins, and I was like, I'm gonna fall right off the stage.
Yeah.
And Heather Eakey, who sometimes would host our shows,
Right. She was
came
MC.
up to me and was like, Gavin is hands down one of the most solid, trustworthy people you'll ever meet. They will not let you down. And I ran with that. I was like, all right, somebody told me that they're not, you know, my trust in you. And I never fell, thank God. But like, I remember that performance and thinking, you are spinning me. Like, I think it was like 3 or 4 times I was being spun out and back in and out and back in and dipped. And so spinning in the dark with bright lights in your eyes on a stage shaped like an arrow where there are pieces of the stage that aren't really there where they should be there was a recipe for disaster, because we definitely saw some people fall off that stage.
Oh, yeah. Quite a few.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I mean, how they didn't, I remember one person fell off hard, and she left with a big old bruise because I mean, yeah, it was bad. It was during a callback.
I almost fell off the stage during Coin Operated Boy when we did it at Wall Street, because we were on that arrow, and Kristen Haygood, misbehaving, like flailed her arms out, and it hit me, and I'm just like, I just watched the video of it like a few weeks ago, so it's like very vivid. So I'm like, oh my God. And then she must have seen me out of the corner of her eye or something, because she just like grabs me like right before I went down. I was going down, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Yeah, I mean, that was it was like a significant drop. You definitely could have, in the dark, not knowing where you're falling to, and then there's tables and stuff like that out there, so.
Yeah.
Thank you for making the new stage.
Yeah, that's shaped like a toilet bowl, but it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah,
it's a lot better than an arrow. So with any performer who's in heels, especially on that stage, you really have to like rely on your co-performer to make sure, like, please don't let me fall. Please don't let me break an ankle.
Yep.
All of that. And I think knowing that kind of helps you decide who you're going to ask to be in a number with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because there were definitely performers who you knew you'd have to keep an eye on because they would pre-party a little too much.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not like that was off the table. It's fine, have a couple drinks, but don't get up there and be a mess. And so there were definitely people that I would not have trusted being in heels. But there are definitely people, like, and that stage, because we put it together, had all the cracks, like where you could.
It wasn't level.
No. I thank the powers that be that never made me fall and break a neck or some sort of arm or major whatever. But
now that I'm older, I just think like, the liability. Like we didn't sign any waivers. We didn't sign anything. We just went in there, trust abound, and
just couldn't put things on fire for the most part.
I actually got fined for putting something on fire. Oh. Yeah, it was.
Would you do a flashbang or?
It was for Mind the Gap. I was a fembot, and I had like, like those little sparklers that
Oh,
you can
yeah.
hold. I
I
had them
remember.
as my nipples.
Right, I remember
basically.
this.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, it's not fire, it's just sparks. Like, it's fun. No, I got fined $25.
That's not too bad. And
It's all
thankfully
right.
nothing burned down that night. so
No, it was all good.
That's funny.
So how did you choose a song?
Depended on the theme of the show, usually. Or I didn't have to choose a song. I got asked to be part of
Yeah.
a number that somebody else had already thought of. But I think it always depended on what the theme of the show was going to be. Obviously, I think one of my most fun numbers was when we did the Indigo Girls at the camp show. Because it was like we didn't have to get dressed up. You know what I mean? And
Just
it was
normal
like
clothes.
and we all knew the song. I mean, that audience, we just stopped at one point and the audience was singing everything. So I remember Heather Eakey coming up to the stage and being like, "Take all my money," and just throwing it at us because she was like, "You've got to be kidding me."
Yeah, that was Heather and Rev threw their wallet.
Yes, yes, that's exactly what it was. It was so funny. And I remember like when we had talked about doing that number, I was so hopeful that nobody else wanted to like throw that one in there because I was like, oh man. I would say that number was a lot of fun. And then obviously when we did All the Things She Said, because that number was just like, it was ridiculous. But it was so great. And your braces with your headgear.
I did homemade headgear.
So wait, the picture that I put on the back of that binder.
It was like your cheerleading picture.
I was going to say, I think it was one of my dance pictures, which is really funny. Yeah, it totally was.
Yeah. So So the whole concept was I'm some nerdy girl who has a crush on the popular girl, which was you, and I have my headgear and my schoolgirl outfit. One knee-high sock is around my ankle.
When you had that freaking headgear, when you turned around and the spotlight was on you. I had to stop looking at you because I was going to start like dying laughing because rehearsal only shows so much. But then when you're out on stage and you see it all come together, like if you lose it in the beginning, in the middle of something, when Gavin and I did Milli Vanilli, we could not look at each other because we just cracked up laughing.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't get through that number. I was like, I can't look at you. I cannot look at you at all during that number.
Even now, when I watch all the things she said video, I can hear Brad.
Oh,
your Brad in the audience just dying. And then when we were done and went off stage, he came up in just tears.
Oh my gosh.
Just so many tears.
Laughing so hard. Yep. That number was so much fun. That schoolgirl outfit I got at a thrift store. It was legit like a Catholic schoolgirl romper or whatever the thing was, and it was, I don't know, like a size 12 or something. Squeezed into that little thing. I actually ended up going to a house party afterwards and I just stayed in the outfit because I was like, it's so much to do, all the change of like whatever. And it obviously I did not fit the rest of the party, but it was a bunch of people that obviously were super friendly and stuff, so I wasn't too nervous about it.
Was there any performance that went better than you expected?
That question is a hard one because I feel like they always executed well with the numbers that I did. I do remember that during the All the Things She Said, when Red from the CKG was dumping the water on me for being angry for me being kind to your...
Oh, right.
Remember that? Because I found out that you had this crush on me, and then it was like, like, I don't want to be this mean girl to you. Like, we shouldn't be this way. We should lift each other up. We should encourage each other through these weird times of growing up and everything. When she dumped the water, it went into my ear, and my ear got clogged for the rest of the night. So that's like one of the things that I'm like, didn't go. But I feel like all the performances and stuff always went really well. Maybe the one that I talked about in DC because the music skipped or whatever. Yeah. But there were definitely, like, of other people, there were definitely some people at times who didn't follow the rules and would do things to other cast members or audience members or whatever. And it was always a bummer to be like, pull the music and they've got to leave, because it's just like, I get it. We are all a bunch of lesbians and kings and queens and in-betweens and whatnot. And we all have beef to bring to the table if we want to, but it was like during the show performance, just leave it. Just leave it. And also you put all this time and effort into it. Don't
be a jerk. That's something that I learned through the Renegades, that was kind of rare. The bylaws that we had, and the number one was like be respectful, and that our worth isn't valued by applause. Like we are all equal. And we had that zero tolerance policy before zero tolerance became like the thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like I don't want to say that we were ahead of our time in that way, but we were ingrained to be respectful toward one another.
Absolutely.
And don't put up with shit. That I don't care who you are. You could even be like the creator of the troupe. If you're being a jerk, you're out.
You're out. Yeah, exactly. And I think what you just said is important because early 2000s, I think it's funny because my daughter and I were recently talking about this, and her viewpoint and young people who are coming out today are dealing with what queer part of the spectrum they fall on. Look back to the early 2000s and think like, oh, all the hard stuff is behind us.
Yeah.
No, we were still in it. You know, we were still fighting for marriage equality. We were still part of the don't ask, don't tell time frame.
Yeah.
We were still part of it's cool to be a lesbian because straight men will accept that more than like our butch lesbians or our gay men friends and their partners, that kind of stuff. So there was still a lot of important groundwork that we were setting during that time. But I think going back to when I was in college, I was on the board for our Gay Student Alliance that we had on campus there. And I think being part of that and learning the social etiquette just within our own queer community, because as we came out and became more what's the word I want to use, more into society with acceptance and stuff like that, because the politics were starting to warm to us just being regular human beings, that there was this importance of, it's always been important to think before you speak or walk, because what we were putting out there was a representation. There was this, or maybe there still is, I don't know, I'm not really in the drag king world anymore, but there was always this weird separation between drag queens and drag kings. Yeah. And it's almost like the drag queens were always the main, like when you go to a concert, they were always the main band, but the drag kings were like the openers. Yeah. And it's funny because we've been to huge drag shows in other cities and we see the drag kings around the world, and it's really not that small of a community. Right. You know, there's full-on troupes, there were full-on independent performers that had been part of troupes. You know, there was a ton of stagehands that went with that and whatnot. I mean, there were, I would say that, you know, minimum of like 6 people in a troupe or so, if not more. Yeah.
If IDKE taught us anything, it's that drag kings are global.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that one of the things that was important when we were still doing Dangerous Productions at Wall Street was we wanted to have queens be invited to be part of the conversation, to be part of the performance. Yeah. Not making them a majority of the performance, because obviously it's a drag king show, but we wanted to show that bridge, and there shouldn't be this animosity, because that goes back to like, you know, pre-Stonewall kind of stuff where lesbians and gays didn't mix in bars and that kind of stuff. And it's like, guys, it's already hard enough for us. We don't need to be turning our backs on each other.
We are fighting the same fight here.
Yeah, we totally are. So, and we want to, you know, I think if we band together and do this, we're a bigger voice. So why shouldn't we do that? So I think that there was, you know, unfortunately there were some venues in town that put performers under contracts, not allowing them to be at other places. So that stifled that relationship. I understand why the business did it from a business perspective, but like when you look at who you're, like, especially being who they were in the queer community, right? You needed to allow people to perform at other places, right? You know, and
that's with the Royal Renegades. We were all free agents. We could go, we could perform wherever we wanted to, with whomever we wanted to. Yeah, we were never under contract.
No, the only things that we ever signed like contracts on was when we signed up to do a show. And that was just like, hey, you're going to abide by these rules. These are the times and whatnot to help execute some things. It is definitely, one thing I definitely learned in stage managing is the way that Gavin and I and you would run shows was very by the book. We had like, this is how it's going to be. That is not the way it is in all aspects of the drag world.
Right.
There are definitely drag shows that nobody practices ahead of time. They practice their number and that's it, but they don't go on the stage and set lighting. They don't come together and try to do a tech rehearsal type of thing. They literally show up that night with their music on disc, say play track 2.
Yeah.
And that's that. So that was a little bit of a challenge sometimes with people because it was like, well, why do you need me here? Well,
Oh, okay.
please it's 5 minutes of your Wednesday. Like, please just come and do your number.
Just do it. Yeah, I stage managed other burlesque shows and other drag shows, just as,
Sure.
a nice thing to do. And I was set in my ways because I was taught by the School of Laura. And I had, it was, very concise with how it had to be. And then I went to these drag shows or another burlesque show, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't like fit and proper. And it was, I'm just going to go up there and wing it.
Wing it, right.
Well, bless you, because I need to know
Right.
what you're taking off
Right.
and where you're going to drop it.
Where do you want your props set
Yeah.
up? Like all of that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
And there were other performers who were like, oh, I'll help you stage manage, which at the beginning, okay, great. And then as the show went on, they were not backstage with me. They were up at the bar getting a
Yep.
drink. And I'm like, you know what? I'm
Yep.
just doing this by myself
Yep.
because I need someone that I can rely on. And
I think that format is probably what ended up getting us invited to stage manage other things. Is the fact that it was like, holy shit, that was really professional type of thing, rather than just being this mad chaos. It was like the performer got off stage, their tips were in their hand, all of whatever clothing and props they had were taken back, put at their thing. And then we just, obviously performing at Wall Street most often, we'd had to clear everything out of that back room so that they could
put the stage.
put the stage away and bring everything, get everything, bring the tables out for the evening dancing and stuff like that. So, I don't function well in chaos.
No.
I mean, I'll do it if I have to, but it is definitely very hard. I like lists and I like to be able to execute things on lists. And I like to, like I said, I like to look at the big picture to make sure that nothing's missing. Because if you have one thing missing, it's a whole whatever. Now, the things you couldn't ever plan for were the mishaps that would happen on stage. Like one time JJ almost untopped me when we were performing a number together, or like candy got stuck in my hair, or, people fall off a stage, or whatever would happen.
Yeah.
So there were definitely times. And that's the thing is like, when you're moving that show along back there, it's funny because the shows were usually around 2 hours.
Yeah.
But it was crazy because as you would do the show, your time clock was faster than 2 hours for sure, 100%. So it was, I think that's why I was like, oh, I'm not just going to wing this whole thing.
Yeah, you can't.
No way. And I don't even know, like I'm trying to think of the drag shows that I saw prior to that, but they were really just like a small stage type of thing. Like you just brought your own stuff out and set it up and did your number and then you took it back off with you again. So I just think that this was a little bit different because it was more of like a cohesive production of things. Because I mean, the first drag show I saw was at like a small bar in Louisville, and then when I would come up to see the His Kings, they were performing at Jack's / Summit Station. You know what I mean? And you just come out of the bathroom down the ramp to the little,
and you're on stage.
Ta-da! So man, we performed on some weird stages. Like there's been that. There was the pool table that they would just put wood on at
That's
Havana.
right. That's right.
There's definitely been some very strange. Oh, that's your stage. Okay,
It's
all
a
right.
pool table with a piece of wood on it.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
I remember that. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Some crazy stuff.
I think stuff like that tends to keep you humble, though. Like if we were always performing on stages like at the 930 Club in DC, like maybe it would go to our head a little bit, and then we come back home and here's this pool table.
Right. Here's this spotlight in the back room. Yeah. Definitely some. But you know what? Like I've been to a lot of Queen performances as well, and that is sometimes how they operate. They just angle some sort of light in the bar to the stage area, and all of a sudden a song plays louder than normal, and there's a performance. All this, you see something sparkly coming through the crowd, and you're like, oh, there's a drag performance tonight.
Yeah.
I did go. There was a club. I can't remember the name of it. Somebody who was in Louisville in the early 2000s, late 90s. There used to be a club down there. they kind of had like a dance space, and then it had like a bar space, and then it had a performance space. And I think that's where I actually ever saw my first drag show, like female drag show. And it was awesome because the venue was kind of set up like sort of how like old speakeasy, like the curved booths were with the little cocktail tables. So it was very like, you know, kind of nightclub-y, like a Cabana, like what was it? Where did Barry Manilow always, the Copacabana?
Yeah.
Like that, that vision is what it was. It was kind of like that Vegas style where you sat in the little seats with your champagne on the table, and then they had this stage that was very elaborate because it was a stage for performing, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I just remember being like, "Whoa, this isn't just my high school dance recital. This is so much more than that, you know."
This is like the real deal, but also sometimes I'm performing where my best friend is in the back with holding a flashlight.
Exactly.
As my spotlight.
Yep, exactly. Did you go to Chicago when we performed? Wait, did I perform in Chicago? We did. I feel like this was something with the Renegades.
The Chicago we went to together, it was a benefit show.
Yeah.
And I did Guns N' Roses.
Yep.
Gavin,
But remember that it was definitely like just in the back corner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were in the back corner.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
I remember.
That was a lot of fun, though.
That was a lot of fun. Magic was there.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all had to go downstairs to get ready and come back up that little narrow stairs. And I was like, they were arrested.
I actually talked to Magic that
Did you
night.
really?
Yeah. They had to go on stage and for some reason didn't hear their name being called. And I was like, I think you're being called on stage. And they were like, oh. And just
jetted.
Just jetted.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
okay, talk to you later.
Yeah. I love the friendships and the random, the friendships that I've made from drag have been amazing. But then there's just been these random like sparkle moments where I'm just so thankful for them. Like, I remember meeting Tamale. She performed at at Great Big, and she did the Case Choice number.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one with
I
the
do.
chocolate sauce?
I don't.
And so she performed that number. But you remember how we all sat upstairs after our numbers or in between numbers in the performer area in that balcony?
Yeah.
And you had to come up like backstairs, whatever. And I was stepping through all the performers, and she grabbed my ankle, and she was like, "Your shoes are rad." And like, that was the like seed planted, and then I knew who she was, and maybe we'd had like a brief like that evening ranting to each other, and the after part of it would just be like, "That was awesome," blah blah blah, whatever. But then fast forward to my 32nd birthday, a random number, and I threw myself a birthday party in November, which wasn't even my birth month, but whatever. And I had contacted Tamale to ask if she would come and spin fire for my party, and I remember having to be like, "You know Gavin, and I'm Gavin's best pal." And so blah, blah, blah. And she was like, "Yeah, sure." And so when I picked her up from the airport, she still really didn't have any idea who I was. She just trusted.
Yeah.
She just trusted me enough.
Yeah.
That when I picked her up, she was like, "Oh my God, now I'm putting it all together." And we've been, she's part of my family.
Yeah.
Still to this day. So it's cool when you get to meet performers and you delve even further into a friendship where you've maybe meet family members, or you do, you meet up throughout the year and you get to know their actual name, like not their stage name. So yeah, and just, man, thank God for the drag community, because I really think, we all get messy at some point in life, and there were just some dark years for me figuring some stuff out, and I'm glad that I had that, because it was an outlet, but not necessarily a negative outlet. I could go do these things. You and I formed, you heard a lot of you were my therapist for many years, hence probably becoming my emergency contact. But yeah, so, it kind of keeps you in check, like who you are outside of this, because if you make an ass of yourself on stage, that can be remembered, and that can make a huge impact in the community. So I think that it helped many of us probably not quite fall off the edge of the table so much with some of the choices that we made in life. But yeah.
I remember part of doing the shows, we would have raffle prizes, and we would all go around at like rehearsal or at a meeting. We would talk about like, what can we donate? Do you know what
Oh, I know
I'm
what you're talking about.
What,
Is it
what
still-
can we donate?
We still talk about it. I'm like, listen, we still have a felony get out of jail free card in our back pocket if we need it.
Well, you worked at Chipotle at the
Yep.
time. You were a general manager. So you were like always the shining
burrito
star.
bucks, yeah.
because you had the burrito bucks. And then it got to me, and I worked at a jail at the time. And I said, well, I can lower your felony to a misdemeanor.
Right. And we were all kind of like, wait, maybe that can come in handy.
That could.
Thankfully, I've not had to have either of those in life. So
Well, you still have to have your raffle ticket in order
I know,
to.
you do. I do remember that. It was so funny. It was so funny.
Yeah. And then being with you, I forget what show it was. We were just performing in it. We weren't stage managing. We didn't organize it, nothing. And we just sat back and said, isn't it nice just watching
Yeah.
a show
Yeah.
and not
And
caring?
not doing anything. Yeah. It's a whole different,
It is.
it's a whole different perspective.
We talked about this a little bit, but going back to it, do you feel that drag queens and drag kings are treated equally in either mainstream media or the community itself?
No, not at all. Because you don't see, like, mainstream media right now, everybody's going to think of RuPaul's Drag Race.
Right.
Or, I mean, maybe there's a handful of other characters that are out there that do things, but, like, I don't, it's, what's portrayed in the mainstream are drag queens. And when they would portray them, going back to Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, they would do it with likable characters so that mainstream could kind of, get used to it. Or even like the Birdcage,
Yeah.
you put two really well-liked characters in there, actors in there, and people loved that movie. They kind of saw outside of the drag. And I think that's what it is you want to bring people into the show.
Yeah.
Not necessarily into the character or just focusing on the drag aspect of it, but just sitting back and actually enjoying the show. And so, no, I don't think kings are, because they don't have the same representation. It's just not the main. Like I said, it's kind of like queens are the main act, and the kings have often been like the opener.
The opener, yeah.
Maybe you came to see them. Maybe you were parking your car at that point in time and didn't come to see them. So, and then like I think back, and I really didn't like it at the time, and I still just don't like it. And I understand that it was trying to do a good thing at the time, but like going back to like when Ricki Lake was still a talk show host, and she would have, and people that I knew that went on that show as a drag performer, and they would line up and be like, is this really a man or is this a woman? And it was that kind of thing. And like,
Right.
that wasn't the point.
Right.
Like, it
Yeah.
just wasn't, you know what I mean? And so it was this like, there was this, I understand what she was trying to do, but it was almost putting the person on stage and then picking them apart
Right.
based on their looks,
Right.
And early in drag, and I don't know how it is with the drag queen community because I haven't been as involved as I was with the drag king community, but a lot of kings, that was their first time of actually being able to explore their gender expression. And then that opened up other doors and questions that they had with their own identity.
Right.
And then oftentimes, many of our friends have
transitioned, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that drag kings, that has allowed people a safe space to figure out
Yeah.
what it is about them, because not always was their drag performer who they were as a human once they transitioned. Those two people could have been completely different.
Right.
But I think it gives a first of all, they walked around that evening feeling comfortable in their skin. Second of all, they got up on stage and people were excited for them and cheering for them and tipping them, and like there's
Right.
all this approval and acceptance of all of that and stuff. And so there was this safety net for people, I think, to explore their gender. I don't know if it's like that for queens, because I feel like with drag queens, they either do just drag queens, or some queens have already started their transition process and perform. That is who they are. Thinking
Right.
of Carrie Nichols up
Right.
in Cleveland. You know? So I knew Carrie as Carrie, always.
Yeah.
Like, she's always been Carrie, and that's who she is. And I think that that's great, because that's who she's always wanted to be. And there's never been this dead name. I think our drag community definitely laid a lot of foundation blocks, but I think that's also given people in their lives the confidence to be who they are in this world, and not necessarily be offended by people's reactions that they get, but take it as a point to educate people, because there's always a chance to educate.
Yeah.
You know, I remember one time being out at a restaurant and a table with some trans individuals harping on the person that was serving them, because they came up and said, like, ladies and gents or something like that, and something was very offensive, and the person got really offensive towards the server, and I remember stepping in and being like, hold up. Yeah. Perhaps this person hasn't had this experience. And you're coming at them with aggression right now. That's not how we educate.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a good way to educate, you know?
What are you thankful for because of drag?
Oh, man, the friendships.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, when I think back, you and I have been friends for a long time. And though that's the thing too, is like you have these friendships that are so rooted that we don't talk all the time. We just hugged because we haven't seen each other in 10 years. You know what I mean? But we've kept in touch. We've known bits and pieces of what's going on in each other's lives. And I just think that, like, seeing us all grow up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we helped each other through. I definitely know I did not make it through my young queer years without the family.
Yeah.
Because that's what's kind of special about the queer community is there are too many people that get kicked out of their religion, get kicked out of their homes, get kicked out of their families, whatever the case might be. They were brought up in the foster care system and never accept it. You know, they don't have any family, whatever the case is, we all come together as a family. And especially, even though, you know, many of us come from supportive families, which is unique and a blessing for all of us, but there are definitely people that did not come from that. And I think that for those of us who had our family support, it's also important to build our friendships with people who didn't have that.
Yeah.
To let them know that that's not how all families have to be, you know, and it sucks that your experience was that way, but one day when you create your own family, that's not going to be that way type of thing. So, but yeah, that and the travel, you know, it was traveling out to IDKE in Tucson was a epic.
Yeah.
Trip.
Even going to Cleveland, like that was fun.
Yep.
Who cares? Yeah, 2 hours away. It was great.
Yeah, the friendships for sure. The creativity part of it was always fun because it was cool to, you know, once you graduate from high school, a lot of people lose those extracurriculars because they don't carry over into adulthood.
That's true.
You know, there's no...
I mean, maybe they'll coach Little League for their son.
Or like maybe you did something in college, but again, it comes to an end at some you know, point in time or whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't trade the friendships because, man, that's who's made me. You know what I mean? That's probably why I'm still here today. Some reasons, you know. So for sure.
How different would your life be if you never did drag?
Oh my God, I don't know if I'd still be here. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
You know, there was definitely some very, I think we all go through this. There's definitely some very lonely times in your early adulthood. I don't even know why we act like the 20s are an adult decade because
we knew nothing.
Nothing. I mean, we just came from like infancy to 18, which is really just learning everything. And now we're just supposed to magically know it and execute it flawlessly and sail into the rest of our life. That's not how it is at all.
Do you have any advice for aspiring drag kings or drag performers?
Advice. Just have your shit together. Don't be messy. If you're going to put yourself up there, you know, represent something with a purpose because we're already under the spotlight for who we are. You might as well make it a good moment in the spotlight. I think it's important. Like, I like drag performers. It's important to think about their name because especially in this age of drag queens reading stories to children,
right?
You can't have, you know, Lil Pussy reading a children's book, you know, obviously to a kid type of thing. Right. So I think choosing your name, because if you're going to continue to do something like this, like Gavin did with a production company or whatever, you want to be taken seriously when you need to be. And I think that having a name that limits limits who you can be as a performer. So I think choosing a name, choose it wisely.
Yeah. Yeah, you are absolutely right.
Because I think, I love the drag names. I love when they're kitschy like that.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
But if you want to go outside of that bubble a little bit, and you might not know it today, but at some point you may be given an opportunity to go outside that bubble, you've got to think about what you're representing.
Yeah.
So that would be mine.
All right. Well, thank you very much for just coming back and
Yeah.
talking with me. Thank you for being my friend. And
Absolutely.
thank you for teaching me stage managing. Like I said before, that has took me places I had no idea I was going to be, and I learned a lot and have really benefited from it.
Aw, great.
So
Glad to know
thank you.
that. Yeah, thanks for the friendship too. You saved me many times. Thanks for all the years of bending the ear. So this is a lot of fun. I'm glad that you're doing this. I think it's an important conversation and topic to have.
Thank you for listening to Revisiting the Spotlight, and thank you to Boxland for giving underrepresented voices a platform to tell their stories. To learn more about Boxland and all the media services they provide,